Hello my friends, as of today the Ukrainian Armed Forces are executing a new plan by Zaluzhnyi. The objective is the maximum destruction of the occupiers on the occupied territories and even making advances. Meanwhile, the Russians are still attempting to advance and are hoping for some success. Let's begin with the situation on the front line, specifically from the Kherson direction, where the Ukrainian Armed Forces, according to the Russians, have begun to actively make progress. We'll start with the fact that the Ukrainian Armed Forces are actively targeting the occupiers' bases in the rear. The explosions in Brilliance and Chaplinka yesterday once again confirmed this. However, the occupiers haven't ceased their shelling. As for the situation on the front line, the occupiers are becoming increasingly frustrated as they are forced to abandon their positions, and the Ukrainian Armed Forces continue to press them with tactical battles.
Over the past day, Russian troops launched several attacks on the positions of the 35th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Navy in Kreminna. At the moment, Ukrainian units are holding several houses in the central part of the village. It is difficult to squeeze out and clear the area due to the intensive work of artillery, mortars and drones along the site. Detachments of the 35th Brigade were supplied with a new batch of FPV drones, as well as Shark reconnaissance UAVs. Last night and night, Russian troops launched several strikes on Furore Island, through which the supply of forces in Kreminna passes. Despite the losses, the rotation was redeployed. To the west, near the railway bridge, the forward detachments of the Ukrainian Navy were also replaced. But the artillerymen of the armed forces of the Russian Federation worked on the strongholds under the bridge and next to it, which forced the evacuation of the wounded to the right bank. But the bridgehead of the armed forces of Ukraine remains. And in the coming days, a more serious activation of the enemy near the Dnieper is possible. From the second line, the forces in reserve began to move closer to the front line. Columns are marked both in the direction of Poniatovka and in the direction of Kozatsky. At the same time, separate units of the Katran strike group arrived in Occupiers, as well as to Respublikanets and Stelmakhyvka. This indicates possible attempts at diversionary sorties by sabotage and reconnaissance groups on the Kinbun Peninsula and in the area of Kharkiv and Bolshaya Lepotyka. This version is supported by the activity of the enemy in the vicinity of Heroisk. Last night, two groups tried to land on two boats east of the village. The artillery fired on them, sinking one watercraft, and the other went back.
Furthermore, the Ukrainian Armed Forces released a video showing the Russians fleeing from their positions, and Ukrainian forces started to eliminate them. The Russians were very displeased upon seeing this and confirmed that it was in Kreminna. Closer to the nightfall, the Russians were shocked and reported that the Ukrainian Armed Forces had entered Kazachye Tabory. In general, we are anticipating and hoping for significant success. But before we continue, I'd like to ask you to share this video on social media and watch it to the end. It will greatly help promote my channel. Thank you. Now let's move directly to the Kupiansk direction, where the situation is becoming more complicated. The occupiers have started launching more attacks with tank and artillery support. It's reported that groups of 30 to 50 individuals are attempting to break through Ukrainian positions. There have been more than 10 such attacks in a day. The Russians are suffering significant losses due to these attacks because the front line remains unchanged. However, the attacks persist. Today, the attacks are focused on the Stelmakhyvka and Ivanivsk areas. Attacks near Petropavlivka have ceased, with only shelling ongoing. In the Svatove area, attacks on Stelmakhyvka have resumed. The occupiers have regrouped and launched new offensives across the fields. But it's in the fields where the Ukrainian Armed Forces are repelling them, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Kreminna and Siversk areas, there are only shelling incidents, with no attacks taking place, and the situation in this area has stabilized. In the Bakhmut direction, attacks continue in the areas of Klischchivka and Andriivka. The occupiers, as before, haven't achieved any success, but they are seriously impeding the Ukrainian Armed Forces in their advance to encircle Bakhmut. The front line has remained unchanged over the day, and shelling continues along the entire front line. Similarly, the occupiers are attempting to divert our forces in the direction of the village of Pivdenne, but the Ukrainian Armed Forces successfully repelled their attacks, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Avdiivka direction, it appears that the occupiers are gathering their forces, regrouping, stockpiling ammunition, and will attempt to storm the Ukrainian positions again. They haven't been successful in their two previous powerful attempts to breach our defenses and encircle Avdiivka. As of today's morning, attacks have started in the areas of Severne, Tonenke, Первомайske, Svatove, and attacks on Avdiivka have resumed. However, the intensity of these attacks has slightly decreased. Shelling continues both in Avdiivka and along the entire front line. To the south, there are continuous battles for the outskirts of Marinka. Over the course of the day, they made 14 attempts to break through and push the Ukrainian Armed Forces out of the outskirts of the city. However, the Russians haven't achieved success here, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Vuhledar direction, the occupiers failed to advance near Staromaiorske, so all attacks have ceased, and only shelling is taking place along the entire front line. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Armed Forces have launched an attack on Volnovakha. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, yesterday evening, the occupiers attempted once again to regain their lost positions in the Robotyne area, but without success. The Ukrainian Armed Forces repelled all attacks, and the front line remains unchanged. Additionally, the occupiers continue shelling along the entire front line. In response, our units launched attacks in the Tokmak area. Yesterday, Ukraine celebrated the Day of Rocket Forces and Artillery. I forgot to congratulate our defenders, but one of the military personnel did it for me.
Бажаю вам, перш за все, міцного здоров'я, мирного неба над головою. Пам'ятайте, ви є елітою українського війська. Ви ті, хто несе із неба кару Божу. Ви ті, після кого тільки тиша. Ви боги війни. Слава Україні! Слава воїнам-ракетникам! Смерть ворогам! Разом до перемоги! Перемога за нами!
Also, President Volodymyr Zelensky, in his address on the 670th day of the war, said many interesting things. So let's watch it together.
I wish you good health, dear Ukrainians. A brief report for this day. First, a video conference. The military, intelligence, our security forces, government officials. Special attention, of course, to the front. And a report on the work of our maritime export corridor. I am grateful to all who are fighting and working to ensure Ukraine's access to the global market. The results are good. Russia is gradually losing control of the Black Sea and retreating to the eastern part of the waters. We will reach them there as well. Second, an extended meeting with our government officials. Regarding the steps Ukraine needs to take, both in the context of our transformation and in our work with partners. Specific reforms. In various areas, we are preparing bills and government decisions. Some of them will be adopted in the coming weeks. Third, a conversation with President of the European Council, Charles Michel. Our progress in moving towards the European Union. The decision we expect this year regarding the start of membership negotiations. This decision will be significant, a very symbolic step that reflects how much Ukraine has achieved. We also discussed the situation in the Middle East, the threat of escalation, a tragic scenario. It is important to protect as many lives as possible. I invited Charles, Mr. President, to visit Ukraine. Fourth, I had a meeting with the Minister of Defense of the Netherlands, who visited Ukraine. The minister visited Kharkiv, and I am grateful for this, for the attention to one of our largest cities, which suffers from practically daily Russian terror. We discussed in detail the defense support that the Netherlands provides, and this is vital.
That's all from me. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.